I grabbed a pallet, removed the boards on the backside, and marked the edges of the wood slats to match up flush with the center support board. I used a circular saw to cut the pallet in half lengthwise, but I wasn't able to get the boards completely flush, so I ended up using a jigsaw. I used 2 pieces of the extra support board and placed them vertically at the end of the pallet. I used a square to mark the angle to cut the leg in order for it to sit flush on the ground. I added a support board between the 2 legs for extra stability and added supports on either end of the opposite side of the pallet. I screwed them together and then added slats all the way to the top using a rough 2x4 to evenly space them all the way up. Now I have the most affordable patio chair that I can enjoy all season long. I hope this inspired you to create a DIY patio chair out of pallets.
I wanted to create this built-in bench seating, and seeing some wood pallets gave me an idea. The first thing I did was mark a line with a Sharpie where the back of the bench and the seat part would connect. This way I could be sure not to put padding in that area. Next, I cut my materials. I measured the width of the boards and cut my materials at least twice as wide. I created tufted channels by laying down the mattress topper with the smooth side up toward me, then lay the batting on top of that. I only went down to the Sharpie line that I drew as my guide so that I wouldn't have padding in that area. I pushed the padding and the batting in between the slats to the back of the pallet. After I had done a few, I realized I didn't like the way the foam was bunching up where the support board crosses the back of the pallet. So I cut the mattress topper back in this area so that it would fit around a little bit better. Once you have those in place, add your material over top and you can start to see how it's going to look. I had to play with the material a bit to try to get it as smooth as possible. While I loved the look and feel of this fabric, if I were to do it again, I would definitely choose a stiffer, thicker fabric. I secured the fabric at the bottom where my Sharpie drawn line was. Now I lifted my pallet and started securing things in the back. I wasn't worried about the look of the back since I was going to mount this whole bench to my wall and the back wasn't going to be visible anyways. I secured the fabric to the back using my staple gun, being careful not to pull it tight. Sometimes when I pulled it too tight, I created visible gaps between the tufted channels and I had to go back and correct those. So I wanted to wrap around gently so that the channels were touching. At the top, I secured the fabric as well. This gets covered later, but it was important to stay consistent with how I secured it. I tried to create little folds in mine and remained consistent with that all along the top. For the edge piece, I wrapped it around and secured it in place, and I played with the top material a bit so that I could secure it in a way that I felt looked nice. I found that folding and stapling it created a nice pattern around the top. Now, for the bench. I cut my second pallet in half lengthwise. Then I cut the mattress topper, batting, and fabric to size. Looking back, I would have used more padding here on the bench, probably 3 times as much as I did here. I secured everything in place and then flipped it over to work on the bottom. At this point, I realized that I had to remove a broken board, and I chose to reinforce the sides of my bench with 1x4s on both sides. This also gave me something to adhere to. For the legs, I just used leftover wood, joined them together, and then secured them to the bench. Now it was time to put it together. It was much heavier than I originally anticipated, so I needed some help. Once the bench and backing were secured, I could see how tall this would be. Now I could start working on finishing the top. To do this, I laid a piece of fabric, pretty side down, over the top. Then I attached the tack strip along the top, making sure to staple it onto the edge of the wood, which I could feel underneath with my fingers. When the fabric is flipped over, the tack strip provides a really great edge and a nice finish. From here, I headed down to the front of the bench area. I added a 1x4 along the bottom of the bench. Again, I added mattress topper and secured that in place. Then I added the fabric and tack strip along the top. It's important to make sure to secure it above the foam so that the foam doesn't poke out when you flip the fabric back over. I wrapped the fabric along to the side and secured it in place. Then I added fabric, again with the tack strip underneath, to the sides of the bench. This took some maneuvering, but it worked out after I played with it a bit. It still needed some smoothing out, but it was coming along well. Now that the bench seat allowed us to move the dining area toward the wall, we moved the light fixture, and once the furniture was added in the space, the bench seat really served its purpose and was nice and tall along the wall. This was a fun challenge to take on, and while I would use different fabric and more padding on the seat if I were to do it again, It definitely worked for us. It was sturdy, the exact height we wanted, and at a price that fit the budget. I think I may use a pallet to create a tufted channel headboard in the future.
For this project, we're going to grab us an old pallet. We need to cut a section of the pallet out, but we got to be careful we don't cut where there's any nails or screws. For these cuts, we got to use one of our saws. This is a skill saw. It makes good straight cuts. What we need to do is look at the side of the pallet, make sure we measure, we have the same overhang. It's 2 inches, so we're going to mark it on one side. We're going to take it over to the other side and mark the same 2 inches. Let's go ahead and grab a board and make a nice straight edge. This is going to be the line we cut on. Using the skill saw for this one, because it cuts straight, we're going to go right down the line. Don't forget to use some eye and ear protection anytime you're using a saw. Once we get it all the way cut through, we want to make sure that we get our area nice and clean, but we got to separate these units and we've got to turn them over. We've got 4 more boards on the back side to cut. So we're going to use the same 2 inches, mark a straight line again, just matching with the one underneath. And this one, let's use a jigsaw. I want to demonstrate both different types of cutting tools. This jigsaw is easy for small projects and it goes right through. Go ahead and separate it, but don't throw it away. We'll need those boards. Take the section that we cut and we need to find the middle. That is how we're going to get our 2 ends perfectly aligned. Then we use a jigsaw, get it cut through, and separate those. These are going to be our sides. Now what we got to do is take that part that we cut off earlier and separated and remove some of the boards with the nails in them. They're very easy to do. I can just pull up on them and they come right off. Now you've got some nails in there though. We need to remove those. It's easy to do. Just go ahead and grab a hammer and you're just going to start tapping on the back side of the nail. Just keep going. Eventually it's going to give and push right through. Do that with both of the nails. Some of them might have 3 on them. Once you get them pushed through, grab the back of that hammer, which is called the claw, and give it a yank. You're going to pull that nail right out. Easy squeezy, not a problem. Save those boards and we're going to place them across the top of the 2 pieces we cut. Just go ahead and line them up, and as you can see, I alternated the boards with the nails so they're not all lined up together. This one took different boards, put it all on there. Then I used a nail gun just to put it in place. You can use a screw if you want, but this one worked perfectly with a nail gun. I just lined them all up, get them nice, perfectly straight after putting the first and last board in, and then just use 1.5 inch little nails. Put them right in, and it makes a wonderful top for our furniture. This thing is going to be so strong, it doesn't take much to hold it together. And also because it's Hometalk, we've got to make something really nice and neat for this. So take a little bit extra, the boards that we have left over, and we're going to build a little bit of a shelf. And that's going to be for our bottom. Just line these little 9-inch boards up all along, again using the same nail gun that we have, and we're going to put it all together. This one is easy to do. I measured it just nice for the bottom, and look at this. It slides right in. We're not going to secure it because it's time to show you this final project. This is great for outdoor. It looks rustic, and it's great for cooking s'mores and making some hot chocolate, especially with that sliding shelf. I hope you guys enjoyed this project as much as I did making it. I hope this inspired you to build your own pallet or scrap wood furniture. Thanks for watching Home Talk, and we'll see you next time.